NCC 1701, USS Enterprise. Where did NCC come from? Why is it USS? Why is it 1701? And who designed probably the most iconic starship in sci-fi history? Welcome to the Tach Impulse podcast, part of the scitrek family.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
Walter Matthews Jefferies designed the Starship Enterprise for Gene Roddenberry. He did it with very little direction from Gene Roddenberry. Basically, Gene just told him, look, you're not having any rockets, we're not having any massive fins, this is not going to look like something from, Lost in Space or something. It's got to look like something that could actually be designed in the future. Jefferies, who was then honoured in later Star Trek with the Jefferies tubes, the tubes that interconnect the Starship Enterprise D, was the first time we saw it. The Jefferies tubes, used as a way of getting around and fixing all those little things in the backs of corners, designed a starship that went on to become truly iconic. So let's get a couple of the things out of the way first from his initial sketches, because many of those initial sketches he used we actually then went on to see in many different iterations of Star Trek. For one, the Discovery in Star Trek. Discovery was actually based on one of those early designs for the Enterprise. In All Good Things, the final couple of episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, we got to see the Pasteur, a vessel with a big ball instead of the traditional saucer section. That was actually one of his initial designs because he basically said, look, if it's in space, the perfect sort of like pressure shape to withstand pressure is a ball. But when he did the designs, he thought it looked a bit weird. And let's be honest, the Pasteur did look a bit weird. He wanted to stay away from a saucer section design because obviously that was a lot in sci-fi at the time. And he sort of wanted to get away from flying saucers. But the ball didn't look quite right. So he squished it down and he basically went, I've ended up back with a saucer again. Never mind. I like how he really thought through the design and the design principles, though, of what he was going for. He actually did work with consultants from NASA, and it should actually be pointed out as well that he was a flight test engineer, so he actually knew things about, aerodynamics, etc., and how planes work in real life. NASA supported him again, and he thought about things like the engines. Gene Roddenberry told him, look, this ship's going to go massive speeds, unimaginable speeds, amazing speeds. Went a bit Trumpian then, sorry. So the way Jefferies thought about it was, well, they should probably be away from the hull then. They're going to be quite dangerous. Hence the nacelles were born and the engines on the outside of the vessel. He didn't just design the outside of the Enterprise, though. He actually designed things like the bridge. And when he designed them, he actually wanted a very much like a military sort of feel. There is actually a story about when he went to watch the Star Trek The Motion Picture, he fell asleep. And he later moaned that they've turned my Navy-esque designs into the lobby of the Hilton. I would love to see what he thought of Star Trek The Next Generation. I mean, lobby of the Hilton? Carpeted? I think that would have been a little bit of a surprise to him. So here's a couple of little things I actually didn't know about the Starship Enterprise. For one, what does NCC actually stand for? Well, it actually stands for Naval Construction Contract, something that was basically thought up between Jefferies and a couple of other people. They wanted something that sounded military. NC is actually a way of registering in many navies around the world. And actually, funnily enough, his license for his aircraft that he owned himself was NC 17740. Sound familiar? So yeah. Naval Construction Contract 1701. 1701, very similar to his plane, but he actually said, look, I dismissed the numbers 1, 3, 6, 8, and 9 because they could be confused on screen. They would blur together a little bit. They wouldn't look right, so he dismissed those numbers. And he actually said, and this is noted in one of his sketches of the Enterprise, that this is the Federation's 17th Starship design and the first one of that class. Initially, it wasn't the Constitution class. Jefferies actually recorded it as the Starship class, but obviously that was quickly turned into the Constitution. So by that method of deciding 1701, the Enterprise D should surely be however many iterations of the starship it was by that point, so 57, say, 01 or 02, or 1705 if you keep the 17 bit from the design. It shouldn't be 1701. Now, they kept the 1701 as a respect thing according to canon, but it does highlight there's quite a bit of confusion in Star Trek about registries. There isn't always a consistent method for the registration numbers on starships. Sometimes they have the A, sometimes they don't when it's a new version of a starship. It does seem to me that keeping the registration number is a respect thing when a vessel is deemed to sort of, well, let's be honest, the Enterprise has literally saved the galaxy more than once. So, in that case, they get to keep their registry number. But there doesn't seem to be actually a set pattern within the Federation. Now, I'm going to get comments saying, yes, there is. Blah, 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 blah. There are a couple of different rules, and they seem to follow it occasionally, but no, it's not consistent throughout all of the Star Trek series. So, his early designs. We got to see the ring ship design that was an early version of the Enterprise. In the historical thing of the Enterprise and iterations of the Enterprise, we see the original sort of like wooden battleships, we see the aircraft carrier, and then the space shuttle, and then the ring ship that is basically like a very early iteration of sort of like interstellar travel. And we then obviously the NX-01, which, what does NX stand for? Nobody knows. And then we obviously see the original Enterprise. This ring ship, though, design was actually seen in the motion picture and then seen in Enterprise, the series. And actually also inspired the early designs for the Vulcan pre-Federation starships. So, yeah, his designs, even the ones that were dismissed and ignored originally, have really littered through Star Trek ever since. He worked on things like the phasers and several other props. He designed the D7 battlecruiser for the Klingons, as well as the iconic Klingon logo, which is perfect for the Klingons. You couldn't imagine anything more perfect, actually, as a logo for a species that behaves in the way they do. Walter Matt Jefferies was possibly one of the most important influences on Star Trek. Not in just the way it looked, though, in the way that he approached designing these things in a realistic way. And everything had a reason. Everything had a purpose. For example, the reason why there's not lots of sticky outy bits on a Starship Enterprise, or any Federation starship really, is from his thinking that space was actually probably quite dangerous, so all of the equipment's going to be internal. You're not going to have stuff sticking out that can get blown off. That philosophy is stuck with Star Trek pretty much throughout, and not in other sci-fi series. In other sci-fi series, I actually quite like things sticking out. Thanks to Walter Matt Jefferies, not in Star Trek. So yeah, a brilliant design. A brilliant man who really thought this thing through. And one of my favourite starships. To be fair, it's probably the A I love the most, but the original is the daddy, because it's what inspired everything that followed. Guys, get into the comments, tell me what you think. How important was Walter Matt Jefferies to the creation of Star Trek, visually and thoughtfully? Can we understate how important he was? Get into the comments and tell me what you think. But also, what is your favourite starship design? What is the favourite one out of his little stable of designs? I actually do quite like the ring ship. I have to admit I do. Get into the comments again and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member where you get to see most of our videos first. Please go and do that. It really helps us out. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.